So winter is coming, guys. Let's get ready for it. Um, I left the same picture from last month because I wanted the reminder that our warm season turf grasses are really tough. They're a lot tougher than people give them credit for. So even though by this time of year, most of our yards are probably starting to show a little ragged edges, maybe starting to be a little less green, maybe some hot spots, don't panic. It's August. It is hot outside. It is rough. If you're outside, you don't want to be outside. Guess what? Your grasses feel the same way. Okay. It's all going to be okay. We're going to talk today about fall recovery. And for those of you that have been on the ride through the other 4 sessions, this is going to be extremely familiar, repetitive even. But we need to continue those best practices that we've been teaching throughout the summer, including the irrigation practices that Dean talked about last month. And then we're going to spend some time talking about proper late summer, pre-fall fertilization, and talk about pre-emergent herbicide timing. Okay. Before we do that, Earthkind, we are still within the realms of Earthkind. We're talking sustainable landscaping practice to promote balance in your landscape. We are still promoting that judicious use of irrigation, pesticides, and fertilizers. As you've learned through this entire course, you can love your landscape to death, and sometimes backing off is going to give you a stronger, healthier landscape. And I hope you've seen that through the other 4 sessions. I still like to fish. Owen still likes to fish. I do not like to fish right now because it's hot outside. But don't worry, there's plenty of other things indoors that my other half has let me know that I need to do those. So through Earthkind, I am able to do those other things around the house instead of wetting the line with my son. Water conservation. This is often at the front of people's minds right now while we're hot and dry. But we should be thinking water conservation throughout the year. Just because we have that resource in the spring doesn't mean we need to be using it. If anything, using that water early in the season is possibly going to harm our lawn when we could be building in some resiliency to get us through the hot, dry months. Using that judicious use of fertilizer, you can have too much of a good thing. If some is good, more is not always better, especially right now during the heat. We'll talk about that later on. Pesticides, not a good time to be using herbicides. We'll talk about that with pre-emergence, but right now, hot, dry, not a real good time to be using post-emergent herbicides. You might actually hurt your lawn. Increasing protecting pollinators. Andrea and I, before the meeting, were talking about a need to have a standalone workshop where we talk about reducing your lawn and bringing in more drought-tolerant, blooming plants that can provide habitat for pollinators. Look for that maybe in 2027, but we should be doing that through Earthkind. Plant diversity, again, that goes to those landscape beds, and then reducing compostable waste entering landfills. We've talked about mulching grass clippings. We need to keep doing that. So let's talk fall recovery. All right. We spent the springtime building a lawn that is going to be strong enough to withstand the harsh summer months. Well, during those hot summer months, we're using up resources. Your lawn is using up stored energy and resources that it's been building. So when we get into fall, and really we're talking September into October, we're going to be rebuilding the strength that is used up during the summer. All right. The fall is when we want to recover our lawns. If we don't properly recover a lawn, that's when we start seeing winter kill, or we get around to the springtime and somebody goes, well, I had a patch of grass that just didn't come back. What we're probably seeing is we didn't rebuild that strength. We didn't replenish that root system properly going into the cold months prior to dormancy, and we're seeing the effect of that in the spring. So the way that we put a lawn to bed properly, the better job we do, the stronger your yard comes out the following spring. Okay. Now in North Texas, although it's rare, it can look like this sometimes. This is during February of 2021. All right. This was back when I still had cows. But I don't know how many of you guys remember, maybe you were driving around a neighborhood and you saw a random shrub and you go, wow, it's got a 6-inch strip of green down at the base of it. The rest of it's dead as a hammer, but everything that was below that snow line seems fine. Well, it had a nice insulating blanket of snow on it. Above that snow line, it was bitter, bitter cold. And we had lots of plants die off. But myself and some of my colleagues, other professionals, we were looking at 2021 and going, oh my gosh, some of the older varieties of St. Augustine, oh boy, what are we going to see? And oh, some of our Bermuda grasses that like it hot, hot, hot. Like, how are our warm season turf grasses going to weather this? Be real honest, guys, most of them weathered it perfectly fine. They were under this nice blanket of snow. So the temperatures below that snow were not as cold as we thought they were. And most of our yards came out of it, and you never would have thought anything was wrong. Now, what these cold snaps and these events like this, and yeah, this is extreme, what they do tend to show us is which are the yards or trees or other plants that were already under stress, that were already not being managed as well as they could be. Those were the spaces where we tended to see damage. Okay. But we have to prepare for stuff like this. And you guys know where I'm going with it. Starts with that proper mowing. And honestly, this probably matters more now than you could possibly imagine, because now in August, we're by this time of year, and I can speak for myself for sure, I'm bored as all get out. I want to do something other than mow, other than water, and I'm telling you, fight that. Because now when you're sitting there going, well, my yard's not really growing that much, I'm going to drop the mower deck because I want to go mow. No, go get you a cold drink, stay in the garage, do something different. Well, my yard's not growing really fast, I want to go fertilize. No, get you another cold drink and sit in the garage and do something else. This is the time of year where we can absolutely smack our yards and set them back when we've been doing such a good job throughout the year. So again, we're still following that 1/3 rule. And if anything, you probably aren't mowing, but every couple of weeks, maybe if you're still mowing once a week, probably have been irrigating a bit more than others. Maybe you did a July fertilizer. But for those of us, if you skip that summer fertilizer and you're minimally irrigating, you're probably barely mowing because that yard's just kind of hanging out. Remember what I said earlier in the year, that removing more than 1/3 is very stressful. And as you get hotter and drier, that stress is amplified. Now is the time of year when you see a crew come through and cut a yard short and it just turns straw brown because it gets shocked. That's scalping. We do not want to cut our lawns close during the hottest portion of the summer. That is incredibly stressful. And as we get cooler, so looking into September and into October, we don't want to cut that yard going into the cold months because we want that insulating blanket of grass canopy. All right. So continue to follow that 1/3 rule. It will tell you when you need to mow. All right. Or it will tell you when you don't need to mow. All right. By this time of year, we should be at the upper end of our mowing heights. You guys can read all these. You should be familiar by now. We are still trying to cultivate that deep root system. All right. It's giving us better water use efficiency, like I'm sure you learned about last month. This is where our drought tolerance is. These root systems, these are what make our grasses resistant. Don't hamper that by getting a wild hair and cutting that yard short, because where is all of that energy going to come from to recover? Out of that root system. We don't want to harm that root system right now. This is about as rough as the year's going to be. Okay. So just guard against it. Continue to mulch those grass clippings, guys. You're still providing nutrients to your lawn. All right. Use a mulching blade. Small clippings break down faster than big clippings. Honestly, avoid mowing when wet. Yeah, it's probably not. It dries out really fast this time of year. Unless we're dealing, you guys can see this, unless we're dealing with a known problem, we shouldn't be bagging. We want to recycle these nutrients. We want to recycle these materials back into our yard. It's all about building a healthy, strong lawn. We talked about maintaining sharp blades. That is even more important now than it was earlier in the year. All right. Notice that ragged cut on the right-hand side. That's going to take an awfully long time to recover from grass standards, okay? Because it's got to heal up and down that jagged rip. Well, that plant's going to be losing moisture. It's going to be losing resources because that plant is in shock. It's recovering. The longer that takes, the more resources we lose and the weaker your grass becomes. So we want to get something like that left-hand side with a nice sharp mower blade, gives a nice clean cut that heals quickly, preserves water, and allows your grass to recover faster. Okay. Yes, it's a problem throughout the year. You're probably going to see more of an impact right now while it's hot and dry. So maintain that sharp mower blade. As I've told you before, I like to keep a handful of blades at my house. One, it's a good off-season activity when it keeps me from doing dumb stuff. I can go sharpen mower blades instead of fertilizer, instead of cutting the yard close. All right. But also when it's hot outside and it's 100 degrees in my garage, I really don't want to sharpen a blade. I just want to slap another one on and get after it so I can get back inside, get showered, and cooled off. Okay. Let's talk. Whoop, going the wrong way. Let's talk irrigation. And this is just a reminder from last week's. If you did not sit through the irrigation session, please watch. Or that's a recording we weren't able to get, I don't think. I'm going to give you a refresher, and we do have materials at hand. We need to continue to irrigate properly until those rains come. All right, rain is on its way. Fingers crossed. I shouldn't have said that loud. I probably scared it off. Everybody on the other side of west side of 35, I'm incredibly sorry. But it's on its way. But until it gets here, we do need to continue to irrigate properly. And that means no thirsty concrete. All right. We don't want to be watering hardscapes. Remember, if you're knowingly watering the street, the city might pay you a visit and cut you a ticket. All right. So we don't want to do that. Properly, that means cycle and soak. In our clay soils, we need to be cycling and soaking. All right. When you turn that system on, make sure it's going to water during the wee hours of the morning. A little counterintuitive, but we don't want a lot of water sitting on those grass blades because that's a recipe for fungal disease. That's going to, again, weaken our grass, reduce its resiliency. So we want to irrigate in the wee hours of the morning so that the sun comes up and dries those grass blades off. Okay. When I say cycle and soak, that means, and I've got an example on the next slide that Dean probably showed last week, but I'm going to show it again. If let's say your system needed 20 minutes to apply an inch of water or whatever the Water My Yard program recommended, in our clay soils, you can't water that long, especially if you're using sprays, because most of that water is just going to run right off the surface. So with cycle and soak, we take that one long run time and we cut it up into as many cycles as we need with a soaking period in between to meet that water requirement. And basically you put out a small amount of water, you allow it to soak in, then you apply more. You let gravity pull that water into our clay soils, which can take a very, very long time. And if your soil is compacted or if you're on a slope, your run times probably need to be even shorter because you're going to see increased runoff with that slope. It's much and just harder soils. So all cycle and soak is taking that big run time and cutting it up into smaller cycles with that soaking period. And that's going to allow us to move water deeply into the soil. And then we don't want to water for a while. We want that infrequent watering. We want it deep, but infrequent. And then we let the roots chase that water down. Everything we've talked about so far, I've basically been trying to teach you guys to be root farmers in your yard. All right. I think I told you all that earlier in the season. I'm trying to get you guys to become root farmers because that's where we can use less water and have a stronger, healthier lawn during the hottest parts of the month, which gives us fewer problems, less maintenance, and all the stuff we've already talked about. Okay. Frequent watering can lead to shallow, underdeveloped root systems. If all the water's at the top, in the upper levels of soil, well, that's where the roots are going to grow. There's no reason for that plant to grow roots any deeper in the soil. So deep, infrequent watering, using cycle and soak. Plug for the Water My Yard program. I don't know how many cities the Water My Yard program covers. You can go to that webpage, plug your address in, it'll let you know if you're covered. I know in Greenville, last time I checked, I am not covered. But go give it a shot. You will get watering recommendations sent directly to you. You have to answer some questions first, but it takes the guesswork out and it tells you how much you should water on a weekly basis. And guess what? If it tells you that number is 0, well, then you don't need to water. Okay. So please use the Water My Yard program if you're eligible. If you're not, hit up your local extension office. There are some other resources out there, but it's a little difficult to explain in this venue. An example, okay, and for cycle and soak, the vast majority of irrigation controllers will contain this functionality. That said, I did a site visit with another agent. It was actually his house, and we looked at his controller, and I'll be darned, it wasn't in there. So we had to kick it old school and set multiple start times for a program, but we essentially did the exact same thing. Guess what? I had to consult his owner's manual because I was absolutely. What do you mean it doesn't have cycle and soak? I'm telling you, brother, it's not in there. And by golly, he was right. But we had to consult the owner's manual to find out. If you consult the owner's manual and you're still lost, call their customer service line. There are folks there that can help you and help understand their product because they want you to be successful. All right. It's bad customer service if they don't want you to be successful. And then you call an awful lot more. That's my former customer service manager coming out. All right. All right. So let's go to the chart on the right hand side. You have that original schedule up top. We've got 4 zones here. We've got spray heads in the front and side yard, drip lines in zone 3, and the big chonking rotors in the backyard turf. But look at that runtime. Our total runtime is 120 minutes when we run all of those zones. So we're doing 22 minutes, and we're just assume we're putting out an inch of water, okay? So we're talking 22 minutes, 16 minutes, 44, and 38 for a total of 120. Well, in our clay soils, using spray heads, that 22 minutes, how much water is going to actually make it into our clay soil, and how much of that's going to go right down the storm drain and money coming out of my pocket, wasting that resource? Could be an awful lot. Could be an awful lot. So let's, John, and you can see the math there. So let's automatically go, well, we need to cut that in half right away. We're going to turn it into 2 cycles. Boom, I'm an Aggie. I can do that math with my shoes on. I don't even need my toes. All right, we're just going to cut those run times in half. And we're going to give a 45-minute to an hour soaking period in between those cycles to give that water a chance to be pulled deeper into the soil, to soak in. Notice our total runtime is still that 120 minutes. So we are still putting out the amount of water that we need, but we're cutting it up. All right. So let's say we're still seeing runoff. All right. Well, instead of 2 cycles, let's cut it up into 3. Y'all can see how that works. Okay. And we still have that 120-minute runtime. So we're still putting out the water that we need, but we're cutting it up into smaller bites so we have less runoff and less waste. All right. Think of it this way. You are spending the same amount of money each time, whether you're doing the original schedule, the new one, or the 3 cycle. It's the same amount of water that you're using, but you're far more efficient and you're getting more resource in your landscape, being used by your landscape in number 2 and the number 3. All right. This is how we better utilize our irrigation in clay soils and on slopes. You cut those big chunks of water up and you give it time to soak in. All right. We've got to get that water into the soil so it can work for us. Having strong root systems, having a good dense lawn with lots of pathways for that water to soak in is another way to amplify what we're doing here. Okay. So there you go. That is all cycle and soak is. There are other AgriLife resources available. Hit up your local county extension office. We can get those to you. And let's move on and talk fertilizing. And actually, I've got somebody in my inbox right now, and they are absolutely chomping at the bits to fertilize. They've got some. I've asked for pictures in their yard, but based on what they've told me, the yard's starting to look a little ragged. I don't know how they've been watering. I don't know what they've done so far, but they want to know what fertilizer to put down. And right now, the answer is no fertilizer until we get to next month. All right. We are so close to that final meal before the deep sleep of winter that if you're thinking about fertilizing right now, my recommendation is you hold off until next month. Okay. So this picture here, this is from the Bermuda Grass Home Lawn Management Calendar. AgriLife, we have one for St. Augustine, and we have a selection guide for zoysia. I don't know if we have a management calendar for zoysia yet, but September and this timing is the same for all 3 right now. Yes, there's I mean, minute differences in this timing between them, but for homeowners, you're splitting hairs. Don't worry about it. Okay. September into October is when our final fertilizer application goes out. And I would even say I should cut October in half and say by the first half of October. Because what we're trying to do is make sure that final application goes out before 6 weeks of our traditional first frost. So for us, that's like mid-November-ish, something like that. In a hot year, that can get stretched. You know, all of these timings that you see here, they are based upon temperature. That's why I'm not going to tell you Labor Day, get your fertilizer out. Labor Day, get your pre-emergent out. Because that does you a disservice. It's based upon your weather conditions. If we're hot and dry in September, there's no reason to get pre-emergent out. There's no reason to get your fertilizer out either at that point because it's not going to be used. So your timing is going to shift based on that temperature. I can tell you what it is right now. It's not putting that high nitrogen fertilizer out in August. That's a recipe for burning your grass. Like I tell you, we are so close to that final one. You're doing a good job right now. Don't get antsy and do this now. We are in that yellow on the left. The final application, we're talking September into early October. This is one people would say it's your winterizer. All right. And I'm going to talk about what quote unquote is a winterizer, because that word seems to drive some people crazy. I don't lose a lot of sleep over it, but some of my colleagues get real twisted about it. What do our lawns need? If you get a bag of fertilizer, what's in it? Y'all have seen this before. You've got nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. That's the NP and K, the first three numbers on any bag of fertilizer. When you buy a quote unquote winterizer, the vast majority of the time, what you're getting is a little extra potassium in there. All right. When people start thinking about wintertime, they go, ooh, potassium. It makes your grass stronger all around, gives you better drought tolerance, your cold hardiness, disease resistance. So if you're going into winter, you need more potassium. Well, do you? If your soil test tells you that you have enough already, we'll talk about that. Notice that potassium is not considered one of our major pollutants. It's excessive nitrogen and phosphorus that we're really worried about in runoff that can do this to ponds. Potassium's not one that we're really worried that much about. But just because we're not that worried about it, we shouldn't be just applying this product unless our soil test calls for it. So something that you can do in August, carefully, if your ground is hard as a rock, you will break your soil probe. I've done it. So you might need to get a garden hose out and soften the soil a little bit first before you pull some soil. But if you have not conducted a soil test this year, this is something you can do. And I recommend that you do, because how do you know if you need to buy a quote unquote winterizer with the extra potassium? You need to do a soil test. It will tell you. So I recommend the A&M soil test down in College Station. You'll get your nutrient analysis. You'll always get your primary and secondary nutrients. If you've never done a soil test on your property, I recommend that you do routine analysis number 2, which will also give you the micronutrients. You'll get pH, you'll get salinity. In our highly calcareous clay soils in north central Texas, I'm not worried about pH. It's good if it comes back 7, 8, 8.2. Yeah, I'm not worried about it. You're not going to lower it. There's too much calcium. Salinity can be a problem. Typically, you see that with somebody irrigating from a well. Our groundwater tends to be salty. Okay, but you'll get that on your soil test report. And we agents, I know Aaron is in here from Denton County. We use soil tests if we're trying to troubleshoot problems as well, because we want to know, do you have a nutrient problem? Do you have a toxicity? Or maybe you're dealing with herbicide damage. Maybe you've got a hot spot and you go, I need to fertilize, and then you can't even get a shovel in the ground. Well, no, you probably have a water problem. Okay. So we learn an awful lot from soil testing, and that's something you should do right now to prep you for your fertilizer that's going to go out in September. All right. Here is an example soil test report from Royce City. Yeah, this is from back in April, but let's pretend you got this soil sample right now. Okay. And I deleted all of the boxes that I wanted to have come up here. What I wanted you to focus in on is your fertilizer recommended. And that's over here on the right-hand side. Pull out my laser pointer. Let me go back. I tried to get my laser pointer out. Either way, on the right-hand side, you'll see fertilizer recommended. And we've got 0.9 pounds of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet. Yep, not a problem there. That is pretty standard. Our grasses use nitrogen. If you're recycling your grass clippings, you can replenish some of this nitrogen in those natural cycles. All right, and we should be doing that. We've got over 2 pounds of phosphorus needed. That's quite a bit. Remember, phosphorus is one of our runoff pollutants. We want to be careful how much of this we're putting out at one time. But more importantly, for right now, we're talking winterizers. My soil does not need potassium. So do I need to purchase a winterizer fertilizer with an elevated amount of potassium in it and spend extra money to get that special one? No, I don't need it. And honestly, you're going to be hard pressed to find a lawn food that does not contain some amount of potassium. Okay. But my point is, you don't need to go get the special one that has extra in it. If your soil does not show a need, you don't need to add that nutrient. Okay. I'm far more concerned about how much nitrogen we should put out and how much phosphorus we should put out. Okay. So that brings us back to this slide, which I think I've shown every one of my sessions almost, is that we want to fertilize responsibly per that soil test. Now, I notice here, I just say fertilize phosphorus and potassium based on a soil test. Now we're starting to worry about that potassium. But I'll say it again. You're going to be hard pressed to find one that doesn't have some potassium in it. That's fine. Okay. Far more concerned with excessive nitrogen, excessive phosphorus. Our nitrogen recommendation has not changed and will not change for this entire season. No more than 0.5 pound to 1 pound of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet for application. All right. You need to know how big your lawn is. Don't over fertilize, especially right now with it being hot, and keep those granules in the lawn. We don't want those down the storm drains. We don't want those getting into our water bodies. Plus, you've paid money for them. All right. When I pay money for something, I don't just want to throw it right away in the trash. Okay. This should all be familiar to you guys. So I bring us back here. Here we are in August. Notice we want to prevent scalping. We've talked about that already. Irrigate is necessary for drought stress. But when natural rainfall starts to meet needs, we'll start slackening back off. All right, we've talked about that too. Here's our fertilizer application. Do not apply fertilizer to drought-stressed grass. That is where we are. By the time we get into September, knock wood, touch glass, whatever we got to do, we should start seeing seasonal rain come back into our area and we start getting that grass recovery. That's when we want that fertilizer to go out, which brings me onto something I should have said right away. Don't put that fertilizer out right before a rain because you don't know how hard it's going to rain. You don't know if it's going to wash that fertilizer right out into the street and into our waterways and cause runoff. We do not want that. Okay. I'll gloat for a second. My house in Greenville, we got rain Saturday or Friday night and Saturday. We got it back to back couple of days. And I mean, it stormed, it tore roofing material off of sheds and it came out of nowhere. Well, if I'd had product in my yard, it probably wouldn't be in my yard anymore. So we can't trust that. We don't want to put these products out right before rain because we want them to stay in our yards. Okay. And that becomes even more important when we start talking pesticides. So earlier in the year, we skipped pre-emergent because we were too late to talk about it. We are in the planning phase for your pre-emergent herbicide application. It's way too early right now. Okay. And again, this is something, it is based upon your temperatures, your soil temperatures. All right. So the whole goal is to prevent weed problems before they appear so that we can reduce the amount of post-emergent treatments we have to do or should do the following season. Okay. The resource down at the bottom, the pre-emergent herbicides for the home lawn. Please, please, please go to Agni Turf Publications and use this guide. It is a fantastic resource. It is not terribly long. It's fairly short. It is very easy to understand, and it's going to reiterate everything that I'm about to tell you. Okay. So please use that. We may have sent this out earlier in the season, but you can find it on Aggie Turf under their publications page. If you can't find it, shoot me or your extension agent an email. We can get it to you. All right, not a problem. Remember, the bulk of our weed control is cultural control. That's why it's so important to mow properly, irrigate properly, fertilize properly, because we want the strongest grass possible to minimize the amount of chemical control that we need to be doing. All right. So real quick, and I've talked to countless people over my years that they do not believe in pre-emergent herbicides. Brad, they don't do anything. I've used them before and it was useless. When somebody tells me that product was applied incorrectly or they targeted the wrong weed. Okay, so does anybody, and I can't see the chat, so I'm just going to assume this grass on the right, Brad, I put a pre-emergent out, did nothing. There it is. It came back. Yeah, I would expect it to. That's Dallas grass. It's not an annual. You have the same plant right there. And yeah, these products are not going to touch those existing plants, but they can help us battle these, and I'll get to that in just a second. Let's talk about timings first, or incorrect applications. Top of that list is your timing was off. The timing was wrong, either too early or too late. It used to be a recommendation back when I was a kiddo that would say essentially you scout your yard every single day, and when that first blade of crabgrass comes up, boom, put your pre-emergent out. Well, that's a little too late. Yeah, you'll probably catch some stuff, but you've missed a whole bunch already. Well, can you put it out too early? Absolutely. And I've got a couple of slides here in a second that'll illustrate that. Too early is also a problem. All right. Maybe your application rate was too low and you did not have enough herbicide out there, there wasn't a high enough concentration of herbicide to be lethal, to be effective. Okay. That goes into applying too early. Maybe the product was not watered in per the label directions. The majority of these herbicides, if they are sitting at the surface, exposed to sunlight, they begin to degrade very, very quickly and break down. They break down, they are not effective. And you just wasted that money, put that product out in the environment and didn't accomplish anything. We don't want to do that, right? Okay. So pre-emergent didn't work, probably applied incorrectly, or you tried to target a perennial weed with it. And of course it's not going to do anything to that existing plant. Pre-emergents target weeds that are starting from seeds only. So where they can be very effective is, let's say I'm battling Dallas grass right now. If I don't want more Dallas grass plants popping up because they will spread via seed, I can use a pre-emergent herbicide to help limit the spread of this plant. All right. And that would apply for things like King Ranch bluestem, Johnson grass, any of these problematic weeds that replicate via seed very, very quickly. Pre-emergents are a way of keeping that population in control while you spot treat and deal with these issues, whether you're hand pulling them, digging, or using spot treatments of herbicide. Your pre-emergent can help you maintain a population while you get it under control. Okay, so they're still recommended, and we should use them appropriately per their label. All right, so Brad, I don't want to put it out too early. I don't want to put it out too late. Number one, use that pre-emergent herbicide guide that I've recommended. These two snapshots on the right I pulled out. So in the fall, we're aiming for a soil temperature around 70 degrees for 4 to 5 consecutive days. All right. Can you be an uber soil nerd like I am and get out there with a meat thermometer? Absolutely, you can. Am I worried about the soil 12 inches down? No. And I'm worried about that surface inch-ish, because that's where the seeds that are germinating for the most part are going to be. Now, and remember, I'm an Aggie, so I'm really into stuff where I don't have to do math. If I'm looking at the weather and our nighttime temperatures are never getting below 70 degrees, do I need to worry about my soil temps being below 70? No. But when we start seeing nighttime temps get below 70 degrees, you need to start paying attention to this. Okay, so that's a good rule of thumb. Thermometer is still the best. And essentially, you're trying to get your application down as close to that mark as you can without missing it. All right. Well, this is what we're shooting for. All right. We have these germination, what you're looking at, you have these germination curves here. And you're always going to have some seed that's going to germinate a little early, and you're going to have some seed that germinates late, but you're going to generally have this pretty much a bell curve. where the bulk of germination takes place. So our goal is to get our pre-emergent out before that germination starts, because as soon as we put this product out, it is going to start degrading. Whether that's degrading from microbes eating it and breaking it down, or sunlight penetrating the soil and breaking it down, or being diluted out by water, or maybe it's being used. It's being taken up by these target plants that have germinated. So we are using this product. We are losing concentration. Well, you reach a point where you no longer have enough herbicide in the soil solution to control your target. So if we put this pre-emergent out too soon, by the time the seeds begin to germinate, we don't have enough product out to do the job we want it to do. Okay. The way you time it is temperature. Okay. Please refer back to that guide. In the fall, we're talking about soil temperatures growing cooler around that 70-degree mark, and it varies depending on your target. So Poanoa here, the blue curve on the right, that's annual bluegrass. That's a very common winter annual that we see. It's going to start germinating as our soils get cooler. In the spring, we're going the opposite direction. Things like crabgrass, goosegrass, they want soil temperatures to warm up. All right. We want to get that pre-emergent out before they start to germinate, but not way out. Okay. So hopefully that makes sense. Please refer to that pre-emergent herbicide guide. It is a wonderful guide. But if you're in doubt, reach out to one of us. Reach out to your local county extension agent. If you're in Collin County, you're lucky, because me and Curtis, we love herbicides. My master gardeners gave me a mug that says, "I love plants, but killing them's fun." For us, it's just a big puzzle. And we want to make sure that products are used safely per their label requirements, because we don't want to be using products and not accomplishing a goal. That's not good for the environment. It's not good for your pocketbook. It's not good for anything. Okay. So when in doubt, do not use a product. If you're not sure what you're doing, don't apply that product. Call your local county extension agent. We're here to help you. Don't be afraid of contacting the manufacturer of your product, because they have customer service folks that are there to help you navigate these things as well. So don't be afraid of calling them. As far as extension, we've got lots of different fact sheets and publications at our fingertips that we can get to you. And like I said, we kind of like this stuff. All right. To wrap up herbicides for right now, we're too early. We're still probably about a month out for when your pre-emergent herbicides you should start thinking about putting them out. Heck, if you go to a Home Depot, Lowe's, or an Ace, you might not even find pre-emergent yet. Sometimes the stores haven't even got them in yet, which I appreciate, because it's too early. It is truly too early. Use the guides. If you want a special guide, hit one of us up. We'll see what we can find for you. We're here to help you. With that, and I wanted us to have plenty of time for questions for this one, so I've shortened the presentation dramatically, so just to try to clean up any questions you might have. Remember this: everything that we do in our yard should stay in our yards. The grass clippings, the fertilizers, that irrigation water, pesticides, keep it in your yard, out of your storm drains. That's how we build resilient systems. That's how we make lawns less of a problem. All right. As I think I mentioned way early on, lawns are where we see the bulk of our misapplications and our resource waste. And they're not going away, right? I need some yard. I've got 2 small boys. My eldest started kindergarten today. This is a very traumatizing time for me. We need some yard. We need some place that we can play, because I don't want my wife to kill us if we're playing in the flower beds. But what we don't need are yards where we are pouring water and pesticide and other products right into our water bodies, because that's just not a good thing. All right. So when you guys use a resource, it needs to work for you. It needs to, otherwise that's just money out of your pocket. And we extension agents, we're here to improve your life. And if that means you get extra trips to Texas Roadhouse, well, by golly, I have done my job. All right. So with that, I will get off of my soapbox. There is my contact information for those of you in Collin County. And Andrea, let's take questions until it's time to go or the questions run out. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you so much, Brad. Did not have a lot of questions in the chat, just one about irrigation still spraying on her driveway. I think I was able to answer that. So cool. I invite you guys now to type any questions you have in the chat or unmute yourself or raise your hand and we can call on you however it's most convenient for you.
Let's see, I'm going to go in the chat here too.
Okay, Brad, it's Kathy here.
Hey.
So, fall pre-emergent.
Yes.
Always struggle with when to put that down because, again, the temperatures are so crazy as we go into the fall.
Mm-hmm.
If there was a date on the calendar, and again, that's a moving target, is it kind of like maybe mid-October normally, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, mid-October is not out of the realms of possibility, but that's probably going to be too late.
Too late. Okay.
If I was going to give you a date, Kathy, I would tell you no earlier than Labor Day. If we're talking, if our temperatures have plummeted and we're talking pre-emergent around Labor Day, I'm going to be dancing in the streets in the cold weather. That would be incredibly rare. So no earlier than Labor Day. I would say for most years, September 15th is not a bad time to look for. If I was going to say, hey, put it on your calendar, I would say start thinking about it September 1st and maybe have your product by the 15th of September.
All right, good advice.
Kathy, I don't even like saying that because it's such a moving target. But that's most of the time, that's not a bad time. That's not a bad time.
I also laughed out loud when you said, you got the meat thermometer out in the yard because I was like, should I do that? Because I got a couple of meat thermometers.
And this, guys, I told y'all I am a soil nerd and I am completely unashamed of it, y'all. There's no amount of hate you can throw at me that's going to make me go, yeah, and change. I have a soil thermometer in my garage. It's bright orange, so you don't lose it. But the thing's like 18 inches long. I'm not remotely interested in what's going down 18 inches in my soil when it comes to herbicide application, because that stuff down there doesn't have a prayer reaching the surface. So literally the little cheap dial meat thermometer, that's what you can use. That is it. The little one that you can still get for like $3 or $4.99, that is all you need if you want to do the temperature. And like I said, the ambient air temperature rule of thumb, where like I told you, if we're not getting down below 70 at night, that's pretty good too. I mean, just the laws of physics will tell you your soil's not going to be below 70 degrees, right? It's just not going to happen. Right. Now, one thing too, and this is again, I'm gonna throw a spanner in the works. Generally, sometime in September, we're going to get that first cold front come through and it's going to knock a lot of rain out of the sky. There are some times where we get cool enough and we have that moisture because your seeds need the right temperature and they need to take in water to germinate. Often we'll get a cold front in September that can sort of give us a flush of germination. If you see that cold front coming, maybe that's sort of all right, I can get my product out and I can water it in with my irrigation system so that when the skies open and knock us down, I'm going to control that first flush, if that makes sense.
So I have a question about soil testing. I am a newbie with learning all the things about my yard. So how do we go about doing that? Is there a kit that we buy and then we send that off, or?
Sure. So first thing I'll tell you to do is I talked about soil testing in the very first session that we did back in April. Go watch that session because I walk you through what you want to do. I do not recommend the DIY do-it-yourself kits that you buy because the accuracy of them can sort of be all over the shop. I had somebody give me some do-it-yourself test results and their pH came back at like 3.5. Well, everything would be dead. That's just that's not accurate. So I recommend using a university soil lab. There's 2 in Texas. Actually, there might be a third, but the 2 that homeowners really use, that'd be Stephen F. Austin and A&M down in College Station. Use the A&M lab. If you were doing research, I would say go to Stephen F. But the A&M lab, those soil test results are easier to interpret. All you need is a shovel, a bag to hold, or a bucket to hold soil that you're going to mix up, and then a clean Ziploc baggie to send it down to College Station. There are special soil bags that are available at county extension offices. I didn't actually start using those until I worked for extension, and they were right outside my door. But we have the bags and the submittal forms at our office. Mine is in McKinney, but you can go on to AgriLife. You can find where your local extension office is. What you want to do.
Hey, Brad, I put a link to the soil testing form.
Perfect.
In the chat.
Perfect. Thank you. What you want to do, you do not want to go out and just pull soil from one portion of your yard, package it up, send it down to the lab, because that doesn't represent the area as a whole. You want to take multiple subsamples from all across your yard and do your lawn separately from everything else. We don't mix soil from your lawn space to your garden beds to your raised beds because we treat lawns differently. All right, so you want to go around your yard and pull multiple samples, put them in a plastic bucket. I use an orange Home Depot bucket because it's orange and it's hard for me to lose it. When I was soil testing pastures, I left my bucket somewhere one time and I had to find it. And being orange made it easier. But a plastic bucket, and that way, after you've taken generally around 10 or 12 spits of soil, you only need about a double handful from each spot. You're going to mix all that up in that bucket. And from that mixture, you're going to pull your sample to go to the lab in College Station. That way you rule out that maybe if you just pulled soil from one spot, maybe that was the only spot that was like that in your yard, and it doesn't tell you anything. So you want to represent the area as a whole. You'll get your soil tests back from our lab. Generally, it's like 7 to 10 days. I've seen it quicker than that. I've seen it take longer than that when we're in peak season and everybody's sending samples in. But they'll email you your results. And if you need help going through them, which I'll go back and show you, you'll get a report back that looks like this. And literally, I tell people to ignore the little dash lines and focus on the fertilizer recommended. If it has a 0 over here, you don't need anything. But from this fertilizer recommendation, myself or another extension agent, we can help guide you to the appropriate fertilizer for your lawn. And
Brad,
getting into
this is the $12 test, right? And that's what I usually recommend.
Well, so this one that we're looking at right now is 20 because it gives you the micronutrients. For a basic fertilizer recommendation, number 1 or number 2 is all that you need. There are, I think there's 12 or 13 different soil test suites you could order. All you guys need are number 1 or number 2. If you're going beyond that, we're either troubleshooting, you're doing research, or you're just curious. So for a fertilizer, number 1 or number 2. If you've never done a soil test before, I would say spend the extra $8 and get the micronutrients just so you get a good baseline reading. If you look at this soil test, all we need is nitrogen and phosphorus. I see this hundreds of times a year. This is standard for our area. pH 7.6, that's fine. No salt problem at all. And no sodium problem. Everything else is rocking along. But from there, really, you just get into this. No more than half a pound to a pound of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet. If you need phosphorus per your soil test, we pick a fertilizer that has phosphorus in it, or we use another phosphorus source. And we don't overthink it. You know, it's pretty simple. Then you follow all the proper mowing stuff. Let's see about soil testing. That's really about it.
I also have a question on where you can buy recommended herbicides, and I have how to take a soil sample and again the form in the chat if you want to go ahead and grab those.
So you said where to buy recommended herbicides?
Yes, sir.
Honestly, you can get them pretty much anywhere. For most homeowners, the stuff that you'd find at like a retail store like a Lowe's, Home Depot, Ace, something like that, will tackle the vast majority of weed issues that we see in yards. There you can get, and there are herbicide guides that AgriLife have, that especially that pre-emergent one has a whole list. Heck, I'll go here. Has a whole list of active ingredients. There are far more active ingredients than this. But these are the most common ones that you're going to find. And for homeowners, they're going to tackle the vast majority of the issues that we have if they're applied correctly. The same applies to post-emergent herbicides. There are absolutely slews and slews and slews of them. And for most people, the stuff that you'd find on the shelf at Home Depot or Lowe's are going to tackle your problem if they are put out at the right time at the proper rate. If you're using a product and you're not having effects, you're not killing your target, hit up your agent. Maybe we go through the label and you realize, well, crud, maybe what I thought I was trying to kill is not what I identified, that proper weed identification. Maybe I'm trying to kill a grass with a broadleaf killer. Well, I'm not going to touch it, right? Maybe, and there are some nuances. There are certain classes of herbicides that are incredibly specific to what they target. By the time you're getting into that, I would have hoped that you would have reached out to one of us, and we're now helping you on that journey. Okay. But for what I really want to leave this class with, you really don't need very much exotic stuff to be successful. There is really no need to be exotic. In my professional experience, when I tend to run into people that are, how to put this delicately, they're trying to be the cooler dude on the block. And yeah, it's normally dudes. It's men. We do these things. But gals can do it too. I'm trying to find this crazy product nobody's ever heard of because it makes me a little bit cooler. The vast majority of the time, you don't need that. You just need what you can get at the store right down the street from you. But if you're running into that sort of thing, you can get stuff anywhere. I've ordered herbicide from that company named after the giant river in South America before. I've bought it from the co-op in the feed store. I've bought it from a Tractor Supply. I've bought product at Home Depot, Lowe's. I brought it at specialty stores. The main thing is when you buy that product, flip it over and check the lot number to see when it was produced, because these things can degrade over time, especially if they get really, really hot. So, for lack of a better term, you want to make sure your product's as fresh as possible. But otherwise, find it the cheapest you can find it, that's convenient for you, and that you're on label targeting what you are targeting, and you're fine. You're good.
Hey, Brad, could you also address the importance of using a weed and feed product with a pre-emergent and not just using one or the other to make sure that you're using those in conjunction?
Well, so that's a loaded question, but
whoa. That was my question. The question is how important it is not to use a weed and feed
product. We go. So
okay.
Yep. So there you are, Kathy. So weed and feed products are not recommended by extension because when we should be fertilizing and when we should be putting herbicide out generally happen at different times. Okay. So thinking about getting into September and honestly, the fall is when those dates line up the closest, but it's still recommended to keep them separate. If I'm sitting here going, all right, I need to get my fertilizer out in time to recover my grass. Let's say I want to do that the first week or two of September, but we're still fairly hot. Yeah, we've gotten some rain, so we're starting to recover, and my lawn needs that fertilizer, but we're still really too hot to get a pre-emergent out, right? If I put out a weed and feed product, one of those things has gone out at the wrong time. So we want to keep those things separate. In the springtime, that's even more important because our pre-emergent in the spring and I'll go to that timing. So around 55 degrees Fahrenheit. That for us is like in North Texas, that's can be mid-March. Well, our first fertilizer application, generally for warm season grasses, isn't going to hit until sometime in May. So if I'm putting a weed and feed product out in February, I'm either putting my fertilizer out and credit way too early and I run into the risk of damaging my yard from frost, or I'm putting my pre-emergent herbicide out so far past when it's going to be useful, it's not going to work. So we want to keep those products separate. What else we got? This is working great. We got any more questions coming in?
I don't see any in the chat.
Well, if you guys think of any more, it's you close this and you go, oh, crud, I forgot to ask. Reach out to us. North Texas has my email and my contact. If you're not in Collin County, you can search AgriLife plus your county, and will get directed to your county extension office. AgriLife Extension, we've been in the extension game for over 100 years. Our job here is to provide information to residents, no matter where you are, how old you are, and get it in a form that is understandable for you. And we cover all 254 Texas counties. We have offices in 250, and you get into some of the small counties out west and up north, and they buddy up. But we cover the entire state of Texas. If you ask your agent a question and they don't know, guess what? We all talk to one another, and we all help each other out. So our job is to help you guys be successful. Like I said, reach out to us.
Brad, one more thing. Is the fertilizer timing chart available online?
Are you talking this Bermuda, the management calendars here?
Yes.
Yes. The St. Augustine and Bermuda grass I know is available on Aggie Turf. And I don't know if the Zoysia one has been published yet, but honestly, you can follow the Bermuda grass guide as far as timings, and you should be fine. But I think the Zoysia one is still being worked on right now.
And I can include those when I send out the recording. I will include that, the soil testing information, as well as those herbicide fact sheets that you mentioned.
Yep. And I guess I'll leave y'all with this plug. So on October 8th, that the Dallas AgriLife Extension Center is our 2026 Turfgrass Field Day. So if you have other questions, that would be a great opportunity for you to engage with the specialists at the Dallas Center and some of the other folks that help provide the information that I've delivered to you guys over the course of this year. And, we didn't get a chance to talk about lawn diseases. We didn't get a chance to really talk about grubs or some of that other stuff. If you have questions, sign up for the field day and come learn some more and engage with us. That's October 8th at the Dallas Center.
Yep. I'll also include the link for that.
Thank you.
It is 1 o'clock. We want to tell you so much how much we appreciate you joining us for this series, and we look forward to seeing you again at other things that we sponsor. Thanks so much.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.